like the song Undertow is all about just getting wrapped up in things that pull us away from God every single day, but he's never, ever letting us go.
Welcome to the show today, friends. We have a very special guest, Dave Pettigrew. Dave is a worship leader, recording artist, author, husband, and father. You've probably seen him around before. He's run with the likes of Paul Balash, MercyMe, for King and Country, Jeremy Camp. You're running with some unsavory characters here, Dave.
Yeah, yeah, no
Yeah,
kidding.
man. Michael W. Smith. Wants to talk to your pastor about him. Uh, Yeah, Sidewalk Prophets, Cutlass, Lincoln Brewster. That old boy can pick a guitar,
Yeah, he can.
and so many more, folks. So, welcome to the show, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me on.
Let's just start at the beginning. How did you get interested in music?
Born and raised into a musical family. My grandmother was the organist at our church until she was about 90 years old. And so, started early. She gave me piano lessons years ago, and then took it through high school, and then went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and then moved to New York City to join a band and make it. And that thing fell apart. And then, did weddings for a while, and then in my early 30s decided I wanted to do something a little more, and decided to jump into Christian music. Christian music had been a part of my life since I was a kid. And we just started going down this road, and it's been amazing ever since. God has just kind of continued to bless it over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about your growing up. You mentioned the music. What about the faith? Did you grow up in like a Christian family? Was it?
Yeah. Born and raised in a Christian family, went to a Lutheran Brethren church when I was a kid. We had an amazing youth group, probably only about 10 or 12 kids in the youth group, but it's funny, just about all of them have gone into some type of ministry over the years. A bunch of the kids, the pastor at this church had 5 boys, and all 5 of them now are pastors at churches around the country. And it's just been for me, it's been a walk with God ever since I was a little kid, and all through my teenage years, accepted Christ fully, probably when I was 14 years old, and then been leaning on him ever since. And it's been pretty awesome all the way.
Well, wow.
Yeah.
No, no, no. Prodigal son, where you went off, and just sowed your wild oats and all that.
No, man. I mean, I guess you could say in my 20s, I was playing a bunch of blues bars and, doing that kind of stuff. But overall, it's been Jesus has always been a part of it ever since day one, which has been awesome.
Amen,
Yeah.
amen.
Yeah.
Well, I just love, your music is so powerful.
Thank you.
Some of the songs, the lyrics. Um, I feel like it's just come from the throne room. Love is here,
Hmm.
Undertow. There is hope.
Yep.
Did
Yep.
you when you were working on those? Did you feel like, man, this? Did you think I've got something special here?
Yeah, that I mean it's funny, the writing process. I mean, those songs are all from an album of mine called Faith and Gasoline. It was produced by a guy named Scotty Wilbanks, who was
Mm-hmm.
in the band Third Day for years, and he's done a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
in the Christian world. And I had a couple of those tunes written, just piano vocal, and we just kind of sat down and he listened to them, and he was like, "Man, we're gonna start right here." And we started with this song called Love Is Here. And it was just amazing to kind of walk through the process and sing those lyrics and just kind of have it all happen in the studio. And now, the record's been out for a couple of years, and it's just been amazing to hear the stories from people of how they've used that song, but probably Undertow and Fear Not and There Is Hope. Those are probably the three that people come to me the most and say, hey, those songs really, really kind of helped me through, fill in the blank of whatever they were struggling with in their lives. But it's pretty awesome to be able to, because I just wrote them and I was like, yeah, these are cool ideas, cool songs, cool melodies. And then, yeah, there's a scriptural basis to them all. But at the end of the day, like, we're just trying to point people back towards Jesus through, like the song Undertow is all about just getting wrapped up in things that pull us away from God every single day, but he's never, ever letting us go, which is an incredible promise straight from the New Testament. And it's kind of amazing to just let people, I don't know, digest the songs, let them work in their lives, and then just come back to me and say, that song really, really changed things for me on this particular day. It's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I know
Yeah.
sometimes, I get going during the day, and at work or and you get to you get so intense on what you're
Yeah.
doing, and
Yeah.
I can just sit back and I've got kind of some go-to songs,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just sit that. I may be at my desk and just hit, "Love Is Here," and the cinematography on that video
Oh yeah.
on YouTube is just incredible. Well, they are
Yeah.
on all those, man. Great job on that. I can watch that video, and it draws me back to the Lord,
Yeah.
for that, 5 minute, 10 minute window. I feel like, I'm plugged back in. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, here,
Totally.
here I
Totally. We
am
were
again.
aiming for really kind of majestic kind of just stuff that would do exactly what you just said. Stuff that kind of just pulls you back to the majesty of the Father and reminds you of him, right? Like I find Jesus a lot in nature when I'm hiking, when I'm out in, by the beach, all these very nature type of scenes. For me anyway, I just connect with God more in those places. So visually for me to have that stuff kind of embodied around the record was a huge part of the process of putting it all together too.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I have
Yeah.
a ranch that, when I drive up through the gate in the ranch, the heavens declare the glory of God. And I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like, it's just me and God out here and
Yeah.
communing with the Lord and nature and all his created things.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
beautiful. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, when you're ministering, music I think is just so powerful. It's
Mm.
just God has just there's something about music. We see in the Old Testament where the ministers, the, sometimes they would send them in front.
That's right.
The army's behind them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
The
the music.
worship
We're gonna
band is
put,
up front.
yeah, we're gonna put you up front, Dave.
That's right.
And I know many times that I've been in services and so forth, and all of a sudden it's like you don't sense anything, and then just bam, with the music coming in, it's like the Spirit of God falls upon you,
Yeah.
and it's like a tangible presence of God has entered the room through the worship and through the anointed music.
Yeah. I've had so many people say to me, like, because I probably do 120, 130 live shows a year, and then probably 60 or 70 live streams a year. And on both sides, like whether it be on a live stream or whether it be at a live show, I've had a lot of people just say, man, I just needed that tonight. I needed to kind of step out of the world for a minute and just
Mm.
kind of focus in on worshiping Jesus for these 90 minutes without the distractions. And a lot of people just come up at the end of the show and just say, thank you for doing what you do, because it just allowed me to connect that much deeper with the Savior today, which is amazing. And then, they buy the records or they listen to it on Apple Music or Spotify, wherever they listen to it. And that helps them the next day and the next day and the next day. It's just a lot of people I've found that it's just part of their daily worship process or part of their daily devotions, which is super humbling to me, because it's like, I do music because it feeds my soul and it connects me to God. And other people, if other people can kind of benefit from that connection, it's an amazing thing to have happen.
Yeah, well, I think they certainly do with your music.
Yeah.
Speaking of buying CDs, do people buy CDs anymore?
They do. I just released a new record last week called Solo Worship Volume 4. So there's 3 other of these solo worship albums. And yeah, I was just packing up about 20 or 25 of them, sending them out to people. So people still do buy CDs. It's
Mm.
really, really good.
Yes, yes. Well, I know that the music industry has changed quite a bit.
Yes, it has.
It seems like, as far as the business side, people have to tour and tour and
Yeah.
tour. It's
Yeah.
like even your legacy artists, I guess you'd say that,
Yep.
well, they may spend 6 months out of the year, or some of them may
Oh,
even
yeah.
spend out on the road. They've got a mouth to feed, and,
Yep.
all the people associated with them stepping up on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
When
It keeps us rolling. But aside from the monetary side of it, it's just such a blessing. Like I played a show in Titusville, Florida the other night, and the pastor said, "Look, we can't afford to guarantee you anything."
mm,
He said, "But would you come up for an offering?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me just tell me where and when, and I'll just put it together and we'll come up and, we had 75 or 80 people show up. And I mean, it was just a blessing for these people. It was amazing. And we took an offering and it covered enough of what I needed it to cover for hotel and gas and all that stuff. And it was great. So, I certainly, there's certainly the monetary side of this because it's a business. I got to feed my family with this and all that kind of stuff. But on the other end, like God, this is, I've been full-time ministry now. It's coming up on 4 years in October. And I just, it's just faith and trust just in the Father. And if he wants me to do this, he's going to keep blessing it so that we can stay out there and keep doing it. It's just, that's part of what it is. You just have to resign yourself to the faith and the trust and the surrender to the Father, which is not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's certainly part of the deal.
Well, I think I read the title of your the previous one with Faith and Gasoline. It was the ministry is fueled by the faith and love for God.
Yeah.
And the gasoline, kind of the practical, what you're talking about, is used to get from one place to the next.
That's right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of neat. I have so many people ask me about that title, and they're like, they're trying to read all this kind of existential stuff into it. I'm like, yeah, look, the faith that's part of the ministry. We have
Yes.
faith in God and faith in Jesus and what he's going to do through the ministry. And the gas is just, hey, we need some gas to get from point A to point B. And they're like, well, but isn't the gas like, Jesus fueling that? I'm like, yes, it could be that if you want it to be, but overall, we're just looking to get from one show to the next so we can bless the next audience. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the song "There Is Hope" is there's kind of some things that have kind of sprung out of that. You've kind of got a movement about that, and
Yeah.
maybe let's just dive down to that song a little bit more. I know that some addiction, and
Yep.
there was some personal loss on your part
Yeah.
from. So
It was written. It was actually written years and years ago for the 10th anniversary of September 11th,
mhm.
and I'd been playing a couple of shows in and around the Philadelphia area, and this recovery group, a couple of years later, this recovery group kind of took that phrase "There is hope" and made it kind of their mantra. And so we started doing a bunch of work in the addiction and recovery community, and then my nephew had been struggling with a heroin addiction for about 8 years, and he got himself clean for a couple of months. Came up to our house for Easter in 2017, and we hung out on Thursday night, and then Friday morning he was gone. He'd accidentally overdosed in my basement, and he died. And it's been hard for us as a family to just kind of come to grips with that. He was a good kid, avid fisherman, 27 years old, had a huge heart. He just couldn't beat it. So I remember hanging with my sister a couple days after that happened. And I said, there's two things that could happen here. One, we could just get completely kind of lost in the grief, which is a very real response to something like this happening. And then the other thing is maybe we could somehow use this for God's glory. And so we put together this thing called the There Is Hope movement. And what we do is we act as a conduit between folks that need help from substance abuse addictions and folks that can help, and partnered up with Teen Challenge up in Brockton, Massachusetts. And it's been amazing to just kind of work in this recovery community and to worship with guys and pray with guys and girls that just are stuck in the addictions that they have, and then see them freed through the power of Jesus, just through it all. It's been amazing. And my sister, she came to me a couple of months after we started this, and she said, hey, what do you think of this? I have these little bracelets, just says "There Is Hope" on it. And I said, yeah, let me start taking those around. So we started passing them out to folks that are in recovery, and we started selling them and donated a portion back to the Teen Challenge office up in Brockton, Mass. And I mean, we've given away or sold over 15,000 of these bracelets now. And we've had so many people just say, hey, that bracelet, this one girl came up to me and said, it saved my life. And I was like, how did that happen? And she said, I was about to use one night, and you had given me a bracelet a couple months prior at another show. And she said, I looked down at my wrist and it said, "There is hope" on my wrist. And she said, I put the needle down, called my sponsor. I was out of that situation in like 10 minutes. And she said, it was just amazing. So it's just, the power of God working through a tiny little phrase. I've got t-shirts and hats and all these things that say "There is hope" on them. And believe me, when you wear a shirt that says "There is hope" and you walk around in the world, people will stop you and ask you and say, hey, do you actually mean that? And it's kind of a great ministry tool to just kind of start people talking about Jesus and just putting it all together. So it's been a cool thing to just kind of see it expand and expand and expand, and see God use it and use Ryan's story to just change and save other people's lives. I could talk about it for hours. We have so many stories. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, Well, people certainly need hope today,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm reminded of the proverb. Hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Yeah.
When people are hanging on and hanging on and hanging on, it just seems like there's
Right.
no hope. There's nothing that's coming through for them. It's not falling together. But
Yeah. Yeah.
through that song and through the bracelets and the T-shirts and all, that's a
Yeah.
message to send to people in today's world.
Yeah. It's been a neat thing to kind of be a part of.
What about you? I know you do something on Monday nights. Share a little
Yeah.
bit about that. I've jumped on several times, and man,
Cool.
it's been a blessing to me. So what is it? Is it like an online community or what?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we started it before COVID, and we were doing this thing called Monday Night Worship, and we just get together, and it started with just me and maybe one or two other people on Facebook on a Monday night at 8 o'clock. And then the audience started growing, and we regularly have, I don't know, 70, 80, 90 people on a Monday night just coming together, worshiping together, praying for each other. It really built up during COVID. We went from um, like one night of worship a week to we were doing 4 or 5 nights a week sometimes. And a lot of people told me, they're like, hey, this really helped me get through COVID because they just didn't know what else to do. They didn't have any other way to communicate with people. And so they came together and made friends in our online community. And now I host a retreat once or twice a year. And all the people from these live streams, we have people fly in from all over the country sometimes, and they just get together and meet each other for the first time, have coffee, have lunch, have dinner. It's just, we've built some literally some lifelong friendships inside of our online worship community on Facebook and YouTube of all places. It's been absolutely amazing. So we continue every Monday night, 8 o'clock. Just go to daveonfacebook.com, and we have live streams every Monday night. We worship together for about an hour and a half. It's just been awesome. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've
Mm.
enjoyed the times I've gotten in there. It's refreshing. It's
Yeah.
encouraging. It builds your faith.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Been great.
You got a podcast too, Devotions Made Easy.
Yeah. Yeah. We started that about a year or so ago. I do these every Saturday morning. I launch these video devotions, and very practical, kind of 10, 15, 20 minutes of just talking about how Jesus is working in my life and based on a scripture or something like that. And then we kind of take the audio from that and turn it into a podcast that comes out on Tuesday mornings, and it's on all those different podcast channels like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and trying to think of where else, but wherever you can find a podcast, it's there.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
stuff. It's fun.
Yeah. You mentioned COVID. So when COVID hit, how did that, where did you pivot to?
So 6 months before COVID hit, I took this ministry full time. And I left a very comfortable job in New York City. I was working for a record company. It was great, provided a comfortable living, all this kind of stuff. And then I was just like, you know what? It's time to move on. There was some structural changes going on at the office, so we left. And then 6 months of really good ministry for about the first 6 months, and then COVID hits. I had about 100 shows booked that year, and they were great shows. Like I was going out on a run with Unspoken and Jordan Feliz, and we had Big Daddy Weave lined up, and all these great
Yeah.
shows. And COVID hits, and I was just like, hey, God, like, what happens now? So we pivoted quickly to live streaming about 5 nights a week and built up our online community there. And then in August of that, maybe 6 months later, I had a fan that said, hey, do you want to come and play in my backyard? And we can socially distance and be outside and wear masks and just do like an afternoon of worship by my pool. And I was like, yeah, perfect. Let's do that. So I drove up there, we played the afternoon, and I'm driving home and I'm like, man, why don't I just do this more often? If we can be outside and worship,
Mm-hmm.
it could be great. So I put the word out, and we got booked up every weekend from that weekend in August all the way through the second weekend of December. And that last weekend in December was a front porch in Buffalo, New York. It was about 35 degrees, and man, it was amazing. We had an amazing morning. But yeah, so that's kind of what we did, and that kind of launched this whole thing called the Backyard Worship Barbecue Tour. And I've been doing it every year since, and it's been amazing what happens when you take the message of Jesus outside of the church walls and just kind of start playing parking lots and parks and gazebos in the middle of town and all these different places. People that normally wouldn't hear about Jesus start hearing about him. And we've seen people get saved in parking lots and driveways and parks. And it's been incredible. So God, it wasn't my plan for sure, but he definitely knew what he was doing when we started doing that. It's been amazing.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
Just the power of music to touch people on so many
totally.
different levels. It's not like you're out there beating them over the head with the Bible.
Yeah,
Again, I just go back to there's something about music. We've been involved in some with a lot of musical therapists through
nice.
hospitals, children's hospitals. We've donated a couple of thousand guitars
Amazing.
over the past 10 years to music therapy programs
Right.
inside children's hospitals, veterans programs, mental
Mhm.
hospitals, and
Yeah.
I think when they asked me, you got to kind of skirt around it a little bit because there's so many different faiths, and the hospital doesn't want to make
Right.
this faith mad or that faith mad. Even though I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer in Jesus Christ, and I'm not
Yeah.
ashamed of it. But I always get around the back door, Dave. I say, well, everybody knows who the most famous musical therapist in the world is.
That's right.
It's David.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're like, what? And so
Right.
I'll tell them, even though they couldn't back in the day, they couldn't hook them up, where the bodily functions are recorded and the brain waves and all that. They could visibly see the change that
Yeah.
when the music was played, David and Saul,
Right.
how his countenance was changed, his breathing was changed, his state of mind was
Hmm.
changed. And yeah, I just think that's so powerful how,
Yeah. And
you know,
those lyrics that he wrote were amazing. They were just amazing. So
they're almost as good as yours.
almost.
Yeah. Oh, I
That's
think
great.
I think God inspires a lot of musicians. There's a lot of great songs. A lot, I don't know. Like you're mentioning about the hymns, there's just so much really strong theology in a lot of the
Oh
old
yeah.
hymns. And I know some people, the contemporary music, that say, man, there's no meat there. It's just,
Right.
kind of soft, and let's raise our hands and get into the ozone or something. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's great what God is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I cut an album of hymns last year. We released it, and it's 11 hymns. Like "Great Is Thy Faithfulness" and "Blessed Assurance," "The Old Rugged Cross," like these classic hymns that
Yes.
I grew up singing because my grandmother would sit in the living room of her house, and we would sit. I remember just sitting on the floor. My grandfather would be in the chair in the corner, and she would just sing hymns, and we would sing along and play games and all that kind of stuff. But it was just kind of the way I was raised. And so I made this whole record of hymns, and because I just wanted to pay, homage to some of those incredible songs and the songwriters and the stories. And that album's been very well received, especially by the older crowd, the folks that remember those hymns and are longing to hear them, but they're just not hearing them anymore in the church services because a lot of the contemporary worship has taken over, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a different thing. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, used to when I was coming up, our family too. We had different members. They played piano, aunts, uncles, whatever, and they
Right.
sang, and they recorded gospel albums on those big vinyls.
Yep.
The
Yep.
frisbees.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fond days of all that.
Indeed.
But now you walk into a church and I guess the young people, they don't know what a hymnal is, Dave.
I know. I know.
We're
That
getting
old dusty book in the pew in front of them. What is that thing?
that's and a lot of them. There's not even a hymnal there.
Yeah.
There's not
Yeah.
even one to look at.
Right.
But,
Right.
but yeah. So, any stories from the road with some of these unsavory characters that you've toured with here, man?
Man, so early on in my career, I got really lucky. I connected with a promoter up in New England, and he just, we worked really well together. And so he put me on all these tours that he booked, and I was, we obviously we I was good enough to like hang with these guys, but um they're all amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
that list you read off, and there's more beyond that. And I
sure.
mean, the beauty of it is when you connect with these bands and you see, okay, they've got the label, manager, audience, all this kind of stuff. Some of them have sold millions of records, but at the end of the day, the connection with everyone is Jesus. And we're all doing it for the same reason because we just want to see God glorified in the midst of it all, and that's the bottom line. It's such a beautiful thing. So yeah, I mean, being on the road, I opened up for Michael W. Smith once, and I went up to him that first night, and I said, I said, I just want to thank you for what you do. And he was, that night, he was just like, I just never in a million years thought that God would do what he's done with the music. And I said, yeah, it's amazing to hear. Because sometimes they would say, oh, don't meet your heroes, don't meet your heroes, and you never know what's going to happen. But he was, pretty humble and pretty mellow that night, and it was really cool. And then I was out with For King and Country for a couple of nights and led one of their Bible studies one night. It was pretty awesome. So I mean, like I said, like the bottom line is everyone is just trying to do the same thing, which is bring more people into a relationship with Christ, which is there's no greater cause than that. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Any words for these young musicians out there? I know my daughter. She was at Belmont University for 2.5 years, and
Nice.
we were going back and forth, back and forth. In Nashville. My gosh, the talent level up there with people that are
Yeah.
in churches or just singing, restaurants. I'm going, wow. How have I not ever heard of these people?
Right. Right. I did the same thing. I was born and raised in Rhode Island, and I was really good. And then I got up to Berkeley and Boston, and I was like, I am the worst, And then
Yeah.
I moved from Boston to New York City, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is awful. So for me, my advice always is play every show you can play. Get out, and if it's a youth event in the basement of a church, if it's leading worship on a Sunday morning, if it's playing somebody's backyard, playing somebody's living room, just get as much stage time as you can possibly get, because you hone your craft there and you find your voice, literally find your voice. And then that turns into, God will take it and shift it into the ministry that he wants you to have with it. And every ministry is different. Like I said before, like we're all pointing back to Jesus, but there's all these different ways that we use media and visuals and audio and music and lyrics and all this stuff to point back to him. So, some folks, they can't sing, so they write, and that's amazing. Like, so thank you. Because I always thank those guys that write those contemporary worship songs. They do it so much better than I do. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to cover their songs in my own way, in my own style, and just kind of bring the glory to God. So, but I always tell kids, just get out and play as often as you can. Sing a lot. It's so much hard work. It's such hard work to make it in this business, and to just kind of be satisfied in doing it. It's so much work, so much work. I saw a picture the other day, and it was it was like an iceberg, and just the peak said, there was an arrow pointing to it, and it said the work that people see. And then the whole body of the iceberg was like, and all of the work that actually goes into the process. So that's just what it is. I mean, that record that you're holding in your hands there, I mean, we probably put, a couple 100 hours of work into that thing. It's just, and it takes people 45 minutes to listen to it. So it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing. So anyway, yeah, just work hard and it'll come.
Yeah. A tough question for you.
Yeah.
But tough. Okay. That's a tough one. If you could pick, who would you like to coordinate, work with, collaborate with an album on?
I don't know. I mean, what I'm doing is pretty cool right now, but I've never worked with Tomlin. I'd love to just hang with him for a minute. I mean, I admire the guy a lot just because and like I said, to write those types of corporate worship songs is a really, really, it's not an easy thing to do. And so I just admire the way that he writes, and that he can write stuff that is just so universal. I think one of the Guinness Book of World Records even recognized him as one of the most sung artists in the world, which is kind of amazing. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I would dig working with that guy for a minute and kind of hanging with him and just looking at the process and just seeing how it all works, for sure.
Yeah. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Any parting words for the audience?
Well, I always part with where you can find me online so you can keep this ministry going, which would be amazing. So the best place to find me is just at my website. It's just davepettigrew.net, and you can probably spell that out in your comments of your video here, Ken. But also everything that you need to know is just dpontheweb.com. And all the links are there. You can join our membership program there. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and you can get to the store there, the website there, and there's everything. All the music is there as well. So dpontheweb.com. And yeah, just keep. I always tell people to just keep listening, not to my music or anything, but just keep listening for the Father, because He's going to keep talking to us over and over and over again, and telling us what to do and where to go. And it's a blessing and a privilege and an honor to be able to kind of serve Him in the capacity that I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll put all those things in the description box so people can
Appreciate it.
hit you up, and hopefully buy a bunch of CDs and so forth for every watcher
Nice.
where you're touring. Have
Nice.
you got any with the COVID kind of behind us? It appears anything on the horizon on touring?
Oh yeah, yeah. We're booked up. I've got I got a run with Jason Gray in May, and then we're going out with a guy named John Tibbs in May as well. And then we're working on a few other things with a couple other bands. And then I'm doing a ton of my own solo shows as well. So we'll get back up to that 100 and 120 shows for this year for sure. Just keep on pushing.
All right, I sure appreciate it, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for supporting independent Christian musicians.